My name is Lou Zeller. I'm the science director with Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League. We were founded in 1984 because of the Department of Energy's Crystalline Repository project. Yucca Mountain was selected because of politics. It was unselected because of science and technology. If a decision is made and unmade, in a democracy, perhaps it should not be made where the people rule. If there is no front end, there is no back end. I recommend that the Commission, duly constituted, consider that option within its charter, which would reduce the level of the back end of the problem by phasing out nuclear power in the United States, as other advanced industrial nations have done.
One of the things that we are not taking seriously is the renewable energy, because we are saying that nuclear power is safe, clean, and reliable. Nuclear power is a finite resource. It comes from uranium. You cannot take the mining of uranium out of the picture when you talk about nuclear power.
Good.
From cradle to grave, there is a radioactive contamination stream. From the mill mining, through the conversion plant, to the end of the use of the cycle. There's no closed loop. This is a contaminating from beginning to end, and every community that is around each of these places has some sort of ground contamination or air contamination is a routine emissions from nuclear power plants. Now, we can talk all day, and I've heard somebody say that nobody's been killed from nuclear power. Well, it depends on what you define as nuclear power. If you're talking about the nuclear power plant up and running, probably not. If you're talking about the releases, the waste, the management, the mining, yes, there have been deaths from nuclear power. So it is really upsetting to me that we start down this path of calling it safe and clean. Then the guy comes up and says, oh, I think we should go into the poor countries and that we should help them get this nuclear power up and running. Poor countries, that if you build nuclear infrastructure, you are 90% of the way of a nuclear weapon infrastructure.
Right.
It is a ridiculous assignment to that for our national security. If you really want to help the poor countries out there, look at what their natural resources are and how they can develop it from a renewables perspective. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm representing the League of Women Voters of South Carolina. I thought it was interesting that League of Women Voters of the United States opposed the congressional efforts to designate Yucca Mountain based on the lack of site suitability studies. Actually, if you've got a twisted sense of humor, you might want to look at the legislative record. It had as much to do with cafe standards as it did with site suitability. We're delighted that you, Blue Ribbon Commission, are looking at a permanent solution. We suggest that you not pursue a volunteer temporary solution. We think, although it wasn't part of the plan, the current waste storage at defense and commercial sites has been workable. Transporting spent or defense waste to a temporary storage is unsafe and unnecessary. And politically, although I've got to thought about this for later, but it requires that each affected state and commercial interest maintain financial and technical vigilance in order to solve this problem. We have heard a lot about the value of spent fuel. We urge you all to do some cost-benefit analyses. What I've done, based on French, or based on studies of French reprocessing, indicates it's expensive, not counting waste management. I think you all are the ones to determine that, or to have it determined, actually, for us all from an independent site. So, unless there's a site-specific safety issue, we think high-level waste should remain where it is presently until there's a suitable permanent solution.
Good.
and he talked about how to get from where. Near as I can tell, a lot of political problems have come from Washington, D.C. And with perhaps the exception of Senator Lindsey Graham, I suggest that congressional hands grossly minimized in the program, finding a permanent solution. Thank you very much.
My name is Samantha Siegel. I'm the Conservation and Development Coordinator for the South Carolina chapter of the Sierra Club. The 36 million gallons of high-level nuclear waste at the Savannah River Site is a huge environmental threat to South Carolina. We are opposed to any proposal that would bring more nuclear waste to our state, including those for interim spent fuel storage and reprocessing. Not only does this endanger valuable natural resources, including water, plant, and animal life, but it also endangers the health and safety of citizens in South Carolina. While we recognize that the creation of new jobs is important, they should not come at the cost of the health of the people and the environment of South Carolina. Reprocessing of nuclear fuel is a dirty and dangerous chemical process that the Savannah River Site is not geologically suited for due to its high water table, moist climate, numerous surface waters, and the soil's inability to prevent migration of leaking radioactive materials. I'd like to thank the Blue Ribbon Commission for taking on this important issue and offer my support in helping to find a safe and responsible way to deal with nuclear waste in our country.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I worked at the Savannah River Site as a project engineer in 1977 and 1983, at which time I blew the whistle on the Department of Energy for its mismanagement of nuclear waste. For example, using cardboard boxes to dispose of 90% of its solid radioactive waste. In 1992, I went and got a PhD and to partly address how a sophisticated technical organization like the Department of Energy, with many of the top nuclear scientists in the world, could make some of the errors that would be technical errors. After I got my PhD, DU invited me to join the Savannah River Site Citizens Advisory Board, where I spent about 14 years, including 1 year as a technical advisor. DOE had lost public trust, which it recovered surprisingly well by giving the citizens on the advisory board full access to unrestricted information at the Savannah River Site, which led to a significant acceleration in cleanup, significant improvement, surprisingly, in the practices of scientists at the Savannah River Site, and strong public support for the Web Transuranic Repository and Yucca Mountain high-level waste repository. However, since 2005, the Department of Energy has begun to lose the public trust that it had earned on its Savannah River Site Citizens Advisory Board, and I'm concerned that that's linked to the way that the Department of Energy suffered and we did, a significant embarrassment at Yucca Mountain. The Blue Ribbon Commission and the Department of Energy very much want the public to trust it. And the only way I think that it can do that is to give the public trust in turn, which means, as closing, which means that the citizen boards must be able to choose their own technical advisors and their members, and it means that you must be able to give the public the veto power of where the high-level waste repository is sited. Thank you very much.
Good.
Transport of radioactive waste is always dangerous. It should not be undertaken except to move it to permanent storage where it can be isolated and safeguarded for as long as it remains radioactive. This is a very long time, and this facility does not exist. South Carolina's desire to reprocess waste affects every community on every transport route between the reactor sites and Savannah River. South Carolina does not have the right to make this decision for Asheville or any of the other communities it will impact. There are many in Asheville and North Carolina who do not accept or appreciate being volunteer killers against our will, and we will fight it. Reprocessing may be the worst reason to move waste. It is extremely dangerous, ruinously expensive, and very inefficient.
It is a major contaminator of the atmosphere and the oceans and creates an enormous health and environmental hazard. We stopped processing waste in the 1970s because of safety and security concerns. These concerns are still valid. The idea that reprocessing eliminates waste is not accurate. A small amount of usable fuel is created, but a much larger amount of waste is generated. This waste is actually harder to contain safely than spent fuel rods were they to be stored at the reactor sites. And reprocessing separates out and purifies plutonium with everything that comes with that: proliferation danger, cancer risk, public health risk, environmental risk, and there is nowhere to put it. So where is this waste from reprocessing going to go? We don't want it to come back to or through North Carolina. If it stays at Savannah River Site, it will pose an eternal health and environmental danger to surrounding communities, which is unacceptable. They will fight that, and we will support that.
Thank you very much.
One last thing. I'd like to say, until there is a national waste repository, reactor waste should remain at the sites where it was made. This is really for safety reasons, but it will serve as a reminder to states that choose to retain or build nuclear reactors. The waste problem is not going away until we stop making it. And even then, we and all our descendants